Today we're going to talk about weight loss, achieving a healthy weight, and specifically the failures which often happen when we're trying to maintain or achieve a healthy weight. One of the most puzzling for a lot of people is when they really cut their calories and instead of losing weight, they don't. They just stabilize. And we'll get a few patients in every month or so who have done that. And they also usually say, yeah, and I felt terrible. I cut my calories. I am not losing weight. I have no energy. And this thing about feeling terrible and having no energy is a key point. It has to do with a thing called basal metabolic rate. You see, our bodies are just incredibly good at stabilizing and staying where we are. You know, they talk about nobody likes to change except maybe a wet baby or a baby with a dirty diaper. Bodies don't like to change either. Bodies like to stay at the weight they are. And sometimes just dropping calories does not cut it. It doesn't work because what does the body do? It says, okay, I'm not getting calories, so I'm going to drop my basal metabolic rate. Maybe heart rate goes down. The routine burn that we get slows down, and you'll see it over and over. There are other things that contribute to this, things like insulin, hormone reactions. And we're going to talk about a couple of models too, the bank account or the calories in, calories out model. We'll talk about how that compares to the carbohydrate insulin model. You know, neither one of them is 100% in control. And that's where the problem becomes. That's where the challenge happens, trying to figure out what's in control now and how to deal with that. So I'm going to bring Jesus on. He and I are just going to have a conversation about that today based on what we see with patients.
Sounds good. How is everyone? So we put on the thumbnail, and I wanted to mention that the idea of it's not the same to eat a bag of Cheerios with 1700 calories versus having the same 1700 calories from maybe a ribeye salad and a little bit of olive oil or whatever you want to use as dressing. Do you have any comments on that? The going back to Dr. Lustig's comments on a calorie is not a calorie and all that stuff.
Yeah, you're going straight into that carbohydrate hydrate insulin model, and that's a key thing. You know, it has to do people. Most of the calories in, calories out assumption, the bank account assumption is very, very simple. It's if I take calories in, I burn them, and if I take in more calories than I'm burning, I'm going to get fat. I'm going to gain weight. If I take in fewer calories than I'm burning, I'm going to lose weight. That's simple. And it's interesting, you know, you hear Lane Norton, you hear some of the other folks that push that theory, and it's undeniable. It is the first law of thermodynamics, but it assumes again that we're not biological creatures, but we're what's called a bomb calorimeter. You pour the stuff in, you burn it. We're biological creatures. We have things like hormones, and hormones change behavior. You've got a couple of kids at your house. They're not teenagers yet. When they become teenagers, you'll learn on a very, very gut level what that means. But it happens with male-female behavior too. We've all seen it. Hormones drive behavior. They also drive, we're talking right now about gender-related behavior, sex-related behavior, but it drives food-related behavior as well. And unless we know that, we can get very confused and we can end up with a lot of failure on achieving healthy weight. One of the things you're talking about, again, is the insulin model. if we stimulate insulin, it's one of the original and most powerful growth hormones. In terms of, it puts the cells into a storage mode. They store energy, a building mode, start taking proteins and turning them into structures. Well, the foods that we eat stimulate insulin. If it's a carb, if it's cereal, if it's Cheerios, if it's fruit juice, if it's donuts, all of those things stimulate insulin, and insulin starts pushing our body to go into growth mode, not energy burn mode. On the other hand, if we don't get carbs, if we're eating just ribeye alone, one of your favorite meals, or a ribeye and a salad, then we've got very little carbs in there. We've got very few things to stimulate our insulin. So we remain in a burn mode as opposed to our body slowing down and going into that build mode. Maybe that's still too theoretical, is it?
Yeah, you confuse me. But let me see if I can clarify. But I think you got the point. You mentioned calories in, calories out. You will see a lot of people out there saying, "Well, we're not bomb calorimeters. We're not machines. It's not like if you eat 2,000 calories, you're gonna burn them all. And if you don't need 2,000 calories, a lot of that is gonna go and convert into fat." And that's truth. But this is where macros, carbohydrates, fats, protein matter, because it's not the same eating 1,000 calories from cookies than eating 1,000 calories from a beefsteak. It's not gonna go to your fat tissue the same way. The next point is it true that you can lose weight but by cutting calories? Yes, like there's no doubt about that. And whoever denies that, well, I think we can be we can discuss and why that's correct. Uh, you can lose weight by by decreasing your calories. The problem is there is a limit to it. There's just a moment where it's gonna stop working, and the reason behind that is uh, because if you, let's say, require 1,000 calories a day to keep your basal metabolic rate, but that is the energy that your body needs to function, the energy that your body needs to work all the metabolic processes, and you're consistently eating less than that, your body is going to start burning fat for some time because they have the energy to do that, like reserved energy to do that. But there's going to be a moment when the body's not going to have enough energy to burn fat. And that's the key point. It's very easy for the body to burn glucose. It takes a little bit more energy and effort to burn proteins. It takes a lot of energy to burn fat. So you need energy to get energy.
In
And
terms
that's
of
the point.
mechanics and internal combustion engines, carbs are sort of like gasoline or maybe kerosene, or maybe not so much kerosene, but carbs are like gasoline and fats like diesel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Carries a lot more calories in it, but it's harder to get it started.
Yep.
Takes a whole different set of machinery to burn diesel than gasoline.
Yep.
And it
then
takes a whole different set of machinery to burn fat versus carbs.
Yep. And then this is what happens usually when somebody started the weight loss journey. They decrease their calories, maybe they decrease carbs or at least junk food, which is a good thing. They're starting to lose weight and then they hit a plateau, but they're still fat. The body compensates and the body will say, "Hey, we need more energy. You're not eating enough," and starts putting hormones out like cortisol, epinephrine, leptin. You start getting hunger, and a lot of people just go back to the old ways or start getting that energy they need, but from carbs.
Mm-hmm.
So they're matching. They might be eating the amount they need for their basal metabolic rate to keep them alive and maintain weight, or even to lose weight a little bit. But if those calories are coming from carbs, they're still very likely to still creating body fat, just because they're doing what Dr. Brewer said. Anytime you eat carbs, your insulin goes up. So that's kind of a conundrum. It's you're if you're saying that only calories matter, you're right and wrong at the same time. If we say that it's only insulin and carbohydrates, we're wrong at the same time. You cannot just eat 3,000 calories on meat and expect to lose weight. That doesn't necessarily happen.
So when we have somebody struggling with that, I'll recommend two things. The first thing I'll recommend, you may guess, and that is cut those carbs. As long as you're stimulating insulin, you're fighting against your body in terms of a weight loss mode. Insulin is a weight gain hormone. So it's very simple and it bears repeating. Carbs stimulate insulin, insulin stimulates weight gain. So if you want to lose weight, don't stimulate your insulin.
Yep.
So don't eat carbs that raise your blood sugar.
Yeah. And protein can cause insulin spikes as well, because some of that protein can be transformed into glucose, but it's not as bad as glucose or carbohydrates do. There are two other components that you need to be aware of if you're trying to lose weight. You cut your calories and it's not working. Exercise is one of them. So you need to do some exercise to use the energy that you need, and that's also going to push you into eating more calories. So you're going to eat more calories, you're just going to spend that energy, and usually trying to cutting the carbs and eating a lot of protein and fat is going to be helpful. A lot of people will say, well, I do feel tired, I'm not performing as well on the gym. That usually goes away after a few days. It's your body trying to adjust to eating fat and protein. And the other component is micronutrients. So just as you need energy to do all these processes, you need some of that machinery in place to make sure that that's going to work. And that machinery in place, it's all of those micronutrients like vitamins, minerals, and other enzymes that you only get from a healthy diet. And so just to kind of just send all this into the same bucket and talk about the same thing, and you get all the full picture. You want to lose weight, yes, you need to cut your calories. You need to cut carbs. You're going to need to eat more protein and fat. You're going to need to exercise a little bit more and make sure that you're getting all of your micronutrients. It's not the same to eat 800 calories with or without the micronutrients. It's not going to have the same effect. And the other point is, if you don't know what's your basic metabolic rate, we use an app called Chronometer or Chronometer, however you want to pronounce it, that according to your weight and height and how much weight do you want to lose is going to tell you what's your metabolic rate and how much you should eat. Now, we're not basing our efforts only on that, but it's going to let you figure out if you want to lose 2 pounds per week, or if you just want to lose 1 pound per week, it's going to be completely different. And you can eat a lot and still lose weight if you know exactly where you want to get and you get all your micronutrients.
So just as a point, we're not paid by Coronado.
Oh, no. We just use the app. We like it. That's it.
And I think one of the competitors, isn't it called MFP, My Fitness Plan?
I don't know.
When you look at this is not a video to compare those software, but just a quick comment about both of them. Chronometer is much deeper, much more geeky. Miranda's in charge of our programs on the diet area and tends to drive the more detailed, the more geeky approach. So that's one of the reasons we're using Chronometer.
Yeah, and we have a health coaching for that, and our patients learn how to use the app and how to navigate that. But I just don't want you to feel like we're saying, oh, you just need to be counting your calories and that's it. No, that's not the case. But if your journey is, I want to lose weight and I cut carbs, and that brought me to half the calories that I need for my basic metabolic rate, we're saying you probably need to eat a little bit more. And some of that energy can come from carbs. We're not saying you should do 0 carbs at all. There are some healthy carb sources. Can you answer that, Dr. Brewer? What are your go-to healthy carbohydrate sources for anybody who needs that to do that?
So let me just warn you, Jesus, make you aware. I cannot see anything because I'm coming in on the visitor mode. So, yep, I'll be happy to help and answer, but I'm flying a little bit blind here. Um, what are my go-to carbs?
Yeah, if at any moment you say, okay, I wanna eat some carbs, what you can do.
Well, I get a lot of grief when I admit that I sometimes eat ice cream, maybe once a week. But
That,
it's
that's just what you want to do, and it's you being on a spoiled brat.
so
We're talking
they may
healthy
not be the
carbs.
healthiest, but it's an interesting point. I've been admitting that I stay ketotic, so I do limit my carbs. The other thing that I do is personally, I'm very strong on the exercise side. So um, there are several issues regarding basal metabolism, and as Jesus mentioned, exercise is a major driver. And one of the things that see, I'm 67. By the time we get 65 and older, there's a good case to be made that it's really more muscle loss than fat gain causing problems. So I really do want to emphasize for people in my generation, 65 and older, you really need to focus on exercise. You need to do HIIT, high intensity interval training, re-HIIT. You need to focus on resistance training and things like what we call exercise snacks, getting a little bit here, a little bit there. So you asked the question about the go-to carbs, and I went to go-to exercise. The go-to carb for most of us will say something like a portion of a sweet potato.
Yeah, well, but you need to be careful. I would say that a healthy carb it's a complex source of carbohydrates that won't spike your blood sugar.
Yeah.
So for some people, it's like steel cut oats or sourdough bread, which can still have some micronutrients that you can use and won't spike your blood sugar. So those are kind of options that you might want to try. I will not recommend ice cream, and I'm getting popcorn later on the night, so I won't recommend popcorn either. But that's kind of the way it is, and you can also get all of that energy, not necessarily from carbs. The whole
Let me
point is
make
getting
a
micronutrients, healthy carbohydrates that will give you nutrients. We're talking about nutrient dense foods here. Yeah.
I know you're getting detailed and serious, but I still want to make a plug for ice cream. Uh, Ice cream is better than I'd rather see somebody have a little bit of ice cream at the end of their meal than to see someone have bread and pasta.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Depends on the
No
ice cream.
question.
Depends on the bread and the pasta. But yes.
Yeah,
Well,
all of it depends on the ice cream. It depends on the bread. It depends on the pasta. But for the most part, people think that breads and pastas are healthy and ice cream isn't. Well, most of your calories that you're getting from ice cream are from fat. And my favorite ice cream is a keto-friendly ice cream. It's Halo Top. Again, we don't get any
sponsorships or anything from them.
sponsorship
Yeah.
from them.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if you're going to have carbs, look critically at what you're actually having.
Yep. Now.
Because carbs are not created equal.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. As long as you don't pull a Gundry, Dr. Gundry here and start saying that cigarettes are good, we're fine.
I'll never say that.
It's an easier case it's easier to make a case in favor of ice cream than it is to make a case in favor of cigarettes. So the other thing that I wanted to tell you, and I just want to share with you what I do, and this is what we do with our patients in the practice, and this is something that Dr. Miranda came up with. Well, she did all the calculations. What we do is, of course, we calculate our calorie requirements according to our weight and where we want to be. We have an exercise routine that we want to comply with. And also, we make sure that we get all of our micronutrients from food, at least most of them. Of course, there are some supplements here and there that are going to be necessary depending on where you are and what you eat. We have a specific salad that will, to me, it's about 500 to 700 calories, something like that. and it has all the micronutrients except for calcium, and it requires a little bit more of supplementation with vitamin B, but just a little bit.
It's a great salad.
So we do
That's
the
my go-to.
we do the salad, and then that's all of your micronutrients basically, or almost all of them. The rest that I eat comes from meat. And if I want to pour some olive oil, which has a lot of calories on it, just for the energy source, even if it doesn't have that many micronutrients in there, that's where I get all of my calories from.
Now,
And
some people would actually even call that a carnivore diet. I wouldn't. I don't think Ken Berry would. He'd call it a
no, because it has
proper
salad.
human diet or a ketovore kind of diet.
Yeah, and I was skeptical about all these people who say, "Oh, you can get all of your micronutrients from meat." I think it's possible if you eat organs, meat organs, especially liver and kidney and heart and all that stuff. So if you do that, yes, it's likely. I think I have seen a recipe somewhere where it has all of that. I'm always a little bit skeptical of thinking that beef has everything in there, just beef. So I love beef, but I don't think it has everything in there. Uh, so that's just my point of view. So just something to consider. But I
Another
mean, if you think that you can get all that from meat, we use the Chronometer app. Use whatever app you want. Chronometer has a listing of micronutrients, and just plug in there what you're eating, and then you get that. You can see if you really are matching all your micronutrients in a day.
Well, as you'll see, I'm focusing on lifestyle right now. I've got another. You're always interested in cultural references because you and I are from very different cultures.
Oh yeah,
and more of our audience
and
comes
generations.
from yes.
You guys,
Mine was the great generation.
I have come to learn that boomers like cold boiled eggs, which I don't understand. Well,
but it's so funny. You say that, and then all the boomers say, "Oh yeah, those are great."
I don't know why you like them cold.
I had a
That's the
cold
part I don't
boiled egg this morning.
understand.
Well, why do you want to heat it up if you've got them all cooked and in the fridge? Why do you need to heat them? You got hot coffee.
No, I mean you cook them and then you eat them.
No, you cook them, you eat a couple of them, and then you leave the others in the fridge for the next day.
You can just cook them on the next day. Anyhow, eat your eggs wherever you want. The whole consensus is it's okay to eat boiled eggs. You get most of the micronutrients from eggs eating them that way, actually.
Speaking of organ meats, there is a place in my hometown, Spartanburg, South Carolina. I spend a couple of days there per week. It's called The Beacon. It was featured on Guy Fieri's Diners, Dives, and Drive-Ins. It's a neat place. It's been around forever. I'm 67. I remember my brother first took me to the original Beacon when I was like 9 years old. So it's been around for a while. I meet my old high school best friend, Steve Bobo, there for breakfast every Tuesday. And I usually get chicken livers and I bring those home to my mom. She's 94 and she's got several issues with her heart. You know, and once you get into your 80s and 90s, many of us develop some levels of heart failure. Many of us already have some heart failure and don't even know it. New York State level 1 or stage 1 heart failure, you have no symptoms. But one of the things to think about is iron. And liver is a wonderful source of iron. So it gets back to Jesus. So yes, I went down a very long cultural bunny hole, but it gets back to Jesus's point. You can get those micronutrients like iron from organ meats.
Yep. I don't know how easy that is. I can tell you for a fact. I think for some people it's gonna be hard to get the organs and cook them and all that stuff because you need to cook them. We're not the famous. How do you say that? Well, the guy that
We're not
became
well
famous
known for being chefs.
well, the guy that the Liver King. We're not
Oh,
eating raw meat, of course.
that's
So you cook them, and then you eat them. To me, I can tell you for a fact. To me, the salad is a challenge because you need to do all the cutting and all the prepping and all that stuff. I hate doing that. I
oh,
hated
Cindy
avocado.
does that.
I
She
hated
spends
av-
half the week making salads.
Yeah, I just can't do that. But I'm trying my best. And I hated avocados. I didn't like the taste. I just started eating them a few months ago because one, they work, they are useful. There are people that are sensitive to oxalates, for example, that won't be eating salads. And okay, I mean, that's their choice. I think the people who is sensitive to oxalates, yes, they should decrease on that. But I don't think oxalates are a problem for anybody. For everybody, I might be on the minority, like with the cold boiled eggs, but I don't think plants are there to get us. Uh,
The lectins.
that I personally don't. I mean, I think there are people who are sensitive to that and might have leaky gut and stuff like that that need to decrease some of those. Like I don't eat
Yeah.
beans. I don't eat beans just because of the carbs more than anything else. I don't eat rice just because of the carbs more than anything else. So that's kind of the thing. You need to find what works for you. I got a patient recently that was dealing with kidney stones and kidney stones and kidney stones, and I prescribed an oxalate free diet because of the kidney stones. But those are kind of the caveats that you hear here and there. We probably are, we don't agree with everybody, so then we get bashed with some of the people out there that might have a difference in opinion, and that's fine. At the end, we think everybody should make their own decisions on what they
You know,
like to eat and what's healthy for them.
I think you mentioned Stephen Gundry earlier and
Oh yeah,
cigarettes.
yeah.
Um, he gets beat up a lot for some of the wilder things he says. He's got a whole book about lectins and plants having chemical warfare and being there to beat us up, as you just mentioned. Lectins are real. Plants do use chemical warfare to protect themselves. But again, I think it's a little bit, you can get a little bit stretched when you say you shouldn't eat any plants because of lectins.
Yeah, well, the question is how many people how many people are dying because of they're eating vegetables versus how many people are dying because they're eating a lot of carbs.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like that's the problem with diet and health. Yes, you can find problems, but people never put benefits and risks together and compare them to other benefit and risk.
Yeah, it's like
What was the purpose for this whole channel? Go ahead.
it's like stopping eating fish because of microplastics, which we know are probably a major problem than lectins in my opinion. But that
Right.
doesn't mean that I'm gonna stop eating some type of fish. Just gonna be more careful to get the sourcing right.
Or mercury or farmed salmon. Yep, all of those are issues. But again, you need to start comparing that to what's killing us: mercury in farmed salmon, or infectious processes from farmed salmon. That's really, I mean, farmed salmon is not a mercury issue. It's an assumed infectious disease issue, which again, I've seen little to no evidence that farmed salmon actually causes infectious disease processes. Now, it does cause environmental stresses. That's a different issue, a very, very different issue. And if you want to eat for the environment, if you want to eat for your own belief systems, which, as Miranda mentioned, a lot of vegans do that. They say, look, I don't want to kill or maim any kind of animal, so I don't want to eat any kind of animal product. That's very, very different from human health related concerns about a product.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for anyone who wants to be carnivore, uh, just a step away from the slaughterhouse houses.
Slaughterhouse.
Yeah, that can probably make you change your mind. It's terrible. Uh, but I mean, at the end, that's nature. You go outside in the nature, and it's it's wild out there. That's the definition.
Animals
You
eat
you
each other.
you eat to survive, and that's what we're eating. We're doing that to survive. But at the end, as long as your foods are as natural as possible, I know there are a lot of variables. There are a lot of things that can be contaminated and all that stuff. That's a big issue. But we're just going to go back to the losing weight aspect. So we always say the same thing: a low carb diet, a ketogenic diet. We call it carbohydrate restriction diet. It's going to make you lose weight, but there's going to be a point where you need to identify, hey, I need to do a little bit more, so you can make sure that you're getting just a little bit less of the calories you need, just to make sure that you're getting your metabolic rate in place, that you get all your micronutrients so you can actually burn fat. Then you need to completely complement that with the exercise. So do exercise, adequate exercise to build muscle and keep burning fat, and stop focusing on burning calories. You don't need to burn calories. You need to burn fat. And once you get to that point, like you get to your weight, and you just need to maintain it. And we know it's a problem for a lot of people, because the less you eat, the more hungry you get. There's another option that we didn't discuss, which is a trial of a couple of days of fasting, which can also reset your metabolism big time. Do you want to mention a little bit more about fasting? What's the role of fasting in weight loss?
No, I wanted to talk about Ozempic and muscle loss.
Oh yeah, you're always after that big pharma money, aren't you?
That's
I'm
right.
I'm discussing natural ways to lose weight, and there you go with the Ozempic right away. So
So,
I'm just gonna give you my experience. My N of one experience. I fasted for 3 days. Was a sloppy fasting because I made a lot of mistakes. But I did a 3 day water fast, and then I did a 3 day sardine fast. At that point, I think I have lost around maybe 8 pounds, and I lost another 7 pounds that week. But the major point was not the weight loss. The major point was, yeah, I did heavy exercise in my fasting tech DSR. That's one of the major mistakes I did. However, after the fasting, the big point was, uh, I actually stopped feeling hungry, and I don't remember a single day after my fasting experience that I started to feel hunger again. Like I don't feel hunger anymore, which gives you control. So that happened to me. I don't think that's gonna happen to everybody. But once you have done some low carb ketogenic diet, and then you do a period of fasting, you prepare for that. You do that with some supervision. You make sure that you're well hydrated, that you don't exercise a lot like I did. Then you can use that as a reset for your metabolism to start changing your diet after that. I did one sardine a day, defaulting. Uh,
so
so it was three
I'm
three
actually,
sardine cans actually. Yeah.
I didn't realize that I am able to see comments. I just can't see the how many people are watching. There's a comment and question about, don't they exercise during multi-day fasts? So there's no question that there's a major focus on exercise and fasted exercise. You'll hear that term a lot. It's usually used in um, intermittent fasting. So exercising before you have that meal of the day and getting more burn out of that. But yes, you also see people who will exercise during multi-day fasting. Here's the thing, though: you shouldn't go into never having fasted at all, or jump from never having fasted at all, maybe, and especially never not being on a low carb diet, and then going into a 5 day water fast with exercise. Not that anybody that I know would do that.
I was under Dr. Brewer's supervision, so you can blame him for that.
That's the problem. You never listen. So that's
Yeah, that's for sure. If I would have listened, probably the outcome would have been a little bit more pleasant, not as hard. But the benefits were there. I don't think I need it anymore. In my case, I can do a 24-hour fast here and there, but I just try to focus on the rest of those days. Whenever I'm not fasting, I'm getting all my micronutrients, and that's the whole point. That's the whole conversation we're having here. Doesn't matter what diet you like, and what tribe you're in: carnivore, vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, whatever diet you like, as long as it's not the SAT diet. Just make sure you get your micronutrients. Have a way to measure that. You don't need to be counting carbs every day, but you just need to have an idea of how many carbs you need depending on what you want to do. We have a lot of patients that want to gain weight and want to build some muscle, and that's a challenge to get the calories because you don't want to eat carbs. Then what can you eat? So you can eat olive oil, you can eat nuts, but there's certain margin there that is sometimes hard to eat more to gain weight. So just make sure that you know what you need. And I'm gonna do a quick segue. I do take medications. This is my bottle of metformin. I do one a day. Well, the camera is
Why do you
probably.
take metformin, Dr. Vega?
So I realized that I needed to improve my gut biome. I realized that I'm pre-diabetic, so I want to improve my insulin resistance. I realized that I'm not the most disciplined person, so I might not cheat on ice cream, but I might cheat on other stuff here and there. And I know that even though the evidence is weak, it has some anti-aging properties, and the side effects or risks behind taking one pill of metformin at my age are very slim. So there's a place for medications for whoever wants to try that. I'm not relying on metformin for my efforts. I'm still doing all the lifestyle components. Now Dr. Brewer is going to try to sell you Ozempic.
I was going to say, you wouldn't let me talk about Ozempic, but you were going to talk about metformin.
I'm giving you the entrance that you needed to talk about
I
Ozempic.
tell you what, the things I put up with. Anyway, so you start hearing it and hearing a whole lot about this from Peter Attia, where people taking Ozempic getting some muscle problems. It was already in the science, some of the literature. And I pushed back because the bottom line, it's like what we were talking about in the very beginning. There you go, metformina.
500.
What we were talking about in the very beginning, people trying to achieve a healthy weight. And if anybody hasn't heard of the recent trend to use Ozempic, one of the GLP-1 medications, one of the GLP-1 diabetes medications, by the way, it was developed for diabetes, and it's one of the better diabetes medications that we have now. Far, far better than insulin. People found out that you could lose weight with it. And it gets back to a couple of comments we made earlier. It's a hormone. It's a hormone that I learned back in medical school 40 years ago, but never heard of again until about 5 to 10 years ago when these medications were developed and started being used for diabetes. So people began to notice that you lose muscle with Ozempic weight loss. Here's one of the major problems there, and that is people think you take a medication and you don't have to do anything else for your lifestyle. People that stop eating will lose muscle, just like people who are taking something like Ozempic. As we mentioned before, and Jesus stole my thunder on, exercise is a critical piece, and especially after we hit to our mid 60s, we have to really focus on maintaining a healthy basal metabolic rate. As I've said before many times, there's a good case to be made that it's really more of a muscle loss problem by the time you're 65 and older than it is a body fat problem for a lot of people. So how do you maintain that basal metabolic rate? I'm not going to go back into Jesus's discussion about exercise. But exercise is a critical piece. And we're talking not just jogging. 10, 20 years ago, my boomer generation, whenever we heard exercise, we thought, well, it's just jogging. Well, jogging there was a comparison. A couple of comparisons. One had to do with mitochondria in our muscle, which is a major driver of muscle health and our health. Another where they actually did biopsies, muscle biopsies. It was a crossover design looking at resistance training, high intensity interval training, and aerobic training. Aerobic training was a way distant third in terms of helping us build mitochondria or retain mitochondria. On the other hand, guess what was beginning? Jesus, because you've heard it 1,000 times, so I'm not going to let you interrupt. It was high intensity interval training. So there's a whole bunch of ways and uh, that we need to consider, especially as we age, to get high intensity interval training. Um, Resistance training was a close second. And the bottom line is neither one of them is a replacement for the other. There's a major focus that it's one of the biggest errors that I see in terms of my boomer generation managing a healthy metabolism. So if you're going to be on Ozempic, or if you're just going to go and do restricted eating, if you're going to do fasting, no matter which of these methods you do to obtain and achieve a healthy weight, you got to exercise. There's no option around that. There's no option to say, okay, well, I walk. Walking is not going to get you there. And people, when they talk about resistance training, the men think, oh, my guns, my arms, I want to get bigger. No, you don't. That's not what really changes our metabolism. And when you look at people that have a muscular body, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example. He's got huge arms, but the muscle in his thighs and calves dwarfs his upper body. It's the lower body muscles that we want to put through resistance training and high intensity interval training. Until and unless we do that, we're not going to achieve health as a boomer.
Yeah. If you're young, do guns. Guns matter.
Yeah.
If you're well, I'm talking about biceps, and I don't want to get us demonetized.
Oh man, look at that. Look at those biceps. You want to show us? Ooh.
No, I mean, this is well, let me tell you, they're 3 times bigger than they were used to a few months ago. So you can see a little bit
really?
more
Good for you.
I mean, everybody's on their own spot on their journey. Of course, I'm not jacked as other guys on YouTube. I'm not looking to get jacked. I'm just looking to get better. And I've done tights and muscles my whole life because I played soccer. Yeah, look at that. So that's the whole conversation. If you want to do biceps, do them. Just know that the larger the muscle, the more metabolic benefits you're gonna get.
So while you're talking about your journey, I've got to ask this question in front of the others. So how long were you working with us before you discovered?
Oh, there you go. Look, I've been working. I was working like for 1 year with Dr. Brewer, and I was delaying my test because I was in denial. I was like, I know there's something in there. I don't want to know. I'm just gonna do the things that I need to do. Doing a poor job on it, and then just there's a moment you need to make that decision and say, you know what, I'm gonna stop being a hypocrite and I'm gonna do the work, and your life changes. That's it.
What can I say to that?
Well, if I may,
it only took you a year to hear me.
Oh yeah, just 1 year to listen to you. Of course, I was skeptical, like a lot of people. I need to see the research first. Anyhow, well, I have a story maybe for another moment. Let's go to our members real quick. So I just want to give a shout out. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
No, just a shout out to Ashok Kumar Prajapati for becoming a member. Thank you so much. That goes a long way. As well as Sharon H65. Thank you so much. You know, we answer members' questions first, so I would like to do that unless you have something else real quick.
I do. This is not a member question, but to me, it's one of the most critical pieces, especially for YouTubers.
Okay.
People that are watching. You hear YouTubers and you hear all of these. We've already talked about a lot of the, lectins, are killers. Maybe no, they're not. Jorge Franco is saying metformin is a mitochondrial poison, according to Peter Attia. I don't know any good scientists that would say that that's not true. Here's the problem, though. What is a poison? Air is a poison. Air and oxygen kill people. They injure babies when they're born too soon. Water is a poison if it's inhaled into our lungs. So to say something is a poison doesn't really say very much. I hate to say that, but that's the reality. And that's the reality that people run into when they listen to every content creator they hear, because to make a comment like this is a poison is not very specific. You have to understand the details, the actual cost benefit equation. You have to understand the exposures too.
Yeah. Well, and I I will be more worried about the smoking or drinking alcohol that I will be from metformin. People saying berberine is better. Berberine might be better. To me, it's way cheaper to get a bottle of metformin. I know that in the US that can be a challenge because you need a prescription. Uh, but I think the evidence is clear that metformin is better than berberine in the side of the effects. The other thing is some of those comments come from that a small study showing that metformin might decrease your VO2 max, your efficiency on exercise if you're a athlete by 0.5%, like in half, like half your VO2 max, which is a problem for an athlete. The problem is that was tested at high doses, 2 grams a day, and it was a small study. So from going
And you're not
from that,
taking 2 grams.
yeah, like I will not recommend 2 grams of metformin to an athlete. That's what I
No,
will get from that study. That's it.
I wouldn't recommend metformin, period, to someone who's a competitive athlete.
Yeah, like there are
I'm
other
an
ways
athlete, but not very competitive.
you're more a competition than an athlete. Let's see. No, I'm kidding. Dr. Brewer, they exercise a lot. Glenn Scrum book Glenn. I'm on testosterone replacement and my hemoglobin elevated to 18. Had a CIMT with no soft plaque anyway besides blood donations to lower it. Any thing that's coming to your mind?
No.
We don't deal that much with high hemoglobin cases. We don't have that many cases of that. But what I will suggest is the same thing as we do with any situation like this. You need to get to the root cause. Like a high hemoglobin can be for a lot of stuff. Like one of the major causes is just the smoking. Other causes, TRT can increase hemoglobin. Just having something called polycythemia vera, some other genetic situations that can be a problem. There are medications for that. Some hematologists will recommend aspirin just because of hyperviscosity, which is the blood is too clumsy because of a lot of red blood cells that might increase your risk. Just I think the key point is finding the cause. Why is that hemoglobin high? Piggy Douglas, I wanted to safely add back in carbs after being very low carb for 5+ years. Oh, we lost Dr. Brewer for some reason. Maybe his phone died. I'm gonna try to answer this and see if he comes back. So A1C is slowly climbing. Triglyceride, HDL, ApoB, A1C, all I got worse. Even though the Lumen Flex score was excellent, probably because of low insulin level. Now doing Optimizing Nutrition by Maury Kendall has a super comprehensive site covering all kinds of diets, explains with great references why low carb, high fat diet stops working to lower A1C after 6 to 12 months. So we haven't seen that happening that often on the practice. Like most of our patients have been low carb for years and their A1C usually remains below 5.7, 5.6. I will suspect that there is a metabolic pathway where you are transforming some of those fats and proteins into carbohydrates, and that might be raising that. I'll be curious to see Dr. Kendall's, or I don't know if he's a doctor, explanation on that. So yeah, that's interesting. We don't see that very often on our practice anyway. Mark Diaz, it's good to see you here, my friend. Joe SXMs, good morning. And Rick Folia, good morning from Atlanta as well. Rick Folia, yeah, I don't know if Shark answered where did he get his CIMT. I know we know CIMT can be a problem to find it. Joe SXM, is your feeling that lifestyle and glucose and insulin resistance are key to prevention, but lipoprotein concentration is also important? It is okay to also lower cholesterol as long as you're not getting side effects. That's a great question, Joe. That's what Dr. Brewer calls having suspenders on a belt. We have patients that they're doing the lifestyle, they're in the best metabolic shape they can be, but they have that small black bean on their lab results that it's a high LDL, high cholesterol, and they're concerned, they're worried about that. So those patients, they will come to us and say, hey, well, I would like to try statins, or I even would like to try a PCSK9 inhibitor, another medication. And Dr. Brewer is very open to go ahead and try it, as long as you said there's no side effects. There are problems with medications like that. Like there's one study that suggested that PCSK9 inhibitors may increase the risk of dementia. So we're very careful, and Dr. Bird very careful and tries to make sure that you know the upsides and downsides from each medications, so you can make your own decision on to if you want to lower that. We're cool with that. Like if somebody wants to have their LDL going down and use medications for that, or supplements or whatever, as long as it's a safe option, that's good. Uh, okay, Lifeline. Lifeline, yeah, well, Lifeline, unfortunately, most of the reports we get from Lifeline are not CIMT. It's just ultrasound. They don't describe plaque. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you. Take DCR. There was just a discussion about if CIMT is worth it if it's not showing plaque. So some people might have a high level of obstruction, and a traditional ultrasound, like the one that Lifeline does, might show that there's a reduced blood flow. But that's severe cases. It will not catch the mild cases with just some plaque on it. Dr. Brewer, just give me a thumbs up when you're ready. I'll put you in the screen. Uh, Check out DCR. What percentage of carbs, calories is too much when consuming high fat and sufficient protein to maintain muscle mass? That's a good question. So it depends on what you want to do. Like one thing that gym bros are right in is if you're eating a lot of carbs, you are going to build muscle. Like it's way easier to build muscle with carbs, just because if you eat the carbs and then you go exercise, you have that sugar in your bloodstream, and it's going to start being used as energy from the muscles, which will help create that more muscle mass. Uh, the definition of a low carb diet, depending on where you read it, can go as high as 35% of your calories coming from carbohydrates. So, technically, if you're eating 35% of your calories from carbohydrates, you're still on a low carb diet. So, for somebody who is looking forward to build a muscle mass, no, we're not talking metabolically muscle, which is strong muscle. We're talking just mass, muscle mass. 35% carbs might be a good idea to just try it and test it. I'll definitely will go ahead and eat the carbs before my exercise routine or right after it. Bill Courtney, Carb Manager is very good. Yeah, haven't tested it. Open to use whatever app works for you. Ruben O, milk elicits an abnormally high insulin response for the carbohydrates it contains, about 1.5 times the predicted level. Could milk consumption prevent burning fat and losing weight? Potentially, yes, if it's raising your insulin. Not everybody responds the same to milk and lactose. There are some people that will probably not be able to tolerate it, and yeah, I personally don't drink milk, even though I liked it. I don't know, Dr. Brewer, are you on? Is your
I am.
mic working?
I am. I had to go to the other room.
What's your opinion on milk?
I agree. It can, for a lot of people, it can take them out of ketosis if that's what they're looking to be in, for sure.
Yeah.
Milk has a lot of people. It's very, very common, especially as we age, to get into a lactose intolerance. So there's a lot of challenges with dairy products. Some people think that they're getting problems. I mean, I'll get a lot of questions from patients. Well, I don't really notice any problems with milk, and I don't have any, I'm not having problems with it taking me out of ketosis. Should I avoid it anyway for all the other bad things that dairy does? And I'm not convinced that all those other unseen things are really that bad.
Let me put you on the spot. Cheese or bacon?
That's a really, really good question. A viewer commenter pointed out that I said recently in one of the videos that I was only eating processed meats like once a quarter. I've been eating a lot of bacon recently, and bacon is a processed meat. It has nitrosamines and nitric. It's got nitrics in it, nitrates. The nitrates are used to to stabilize the meat so it doesn't rot. So that's exactly, and the nitrosamines, the nitrates and the amines that form from that are a carcinogen. So I'm going to be slowing down on some of my recent increase on bacon eating. Now,
That's the same reason I stopped eating bacon. I just try to get it from a local butcher now.
yeah, but even how do you know the local butcher's not using nitrates to cure it?
Yeah, that's a problem.
You don't. So you don't see quite as much of that issue with cheeses. And cheeses, a lot of cheeses are fermented foods. With some cheeses, you actually get some of the benefits of fermented food, especially with the higher production, like, Kraft string cheese and stuff like that. That's just a milk and fat product. That's all
And
it
then
is.
and then with the C15 hype, you went to your store real quickly to get a bag of pecorino cheese, right?
Pecorino cheese. I've gotten to where now I'm eating pecorino cheese probably 3 to 4 times a week
Look at you.
because of C15. Now, you reviewed that a couple of weeks ago and you said, it's not, the evidence is not that strong.
For
I agree.
supplements. For supplements.
Yeah.
Like if you get it on the cheese, that's fine.
And I agree with you. I tell you though, the story was a great one about the animal epidemiologist going to work with the Navy and finding out that some of the dolphins they were working with were unhealthy, and it all turned out to be C15. Great
Yeah.
story, not such good science. And that happens. How often does that happen?
Yeah. Well, you need to get as much money as you can until the hype is over, right? Like what happened with AG1. What was the other supplement? AG1, something like that.
Yeah, some athletic greens, AG1.
Yeah. Anyhow, well, that's for it. Fitbit recently broke, and Chronometer and MyFitnessPal were the main alternatives. Chronometer is by far more detailed than Fitbit, and I believe you can't synchronize Chronometer to Whoop, and I don't know if for Aura Ring works as well. Can you coordinate Chronometer with Aura Ring? I think you can.
Pretty sure. I was going to hold my hand up, but I just realized earlier in the show that I don't know where my Aura Ring is. I've never lost it until this show.
Well, there's another ring that you don't have on your hand that has done you favors not having it there anymore. Like losing that other ring changed your life. Uh,
Referring to my recent divorce.
yeah. Anyhow, yo SXM, I tried some allulose ice cream and it did not spike my blood glucose, but I see that it's very high in saturated fat. And that's the thing. Like you can be concerned about saturated fat. Even Chronometer will tell you the same recommendation from the AHA that says no more than 10% saturated fats on your diet. Up to you. We think that, of course, we don't want to base your diet on saturated fats, but we don't think 10% is the threshold. We're okay with eating a little bit more than 10%.
Speaking of stories and how they move people, investigative journalists often move people much more effectively, especially large groups of people, than scientists. And Nina Teicholz is a great investigative journalist who wrote a great book about this issue, about saturated fats. It's called The Big Fat Surprise. If you haven't read it and you're interested in saturated fats and you think that whether you think they're healthy or whether you think they're not, it's a great book to read.
Yep. Jeff Walton, how do you know you're in ketosis after ice cream?
Oh, I blow ketones. And I'm usually not in ketosis after regular ice cream for a day or so. I stay ketotic about 5 to 6 days a week.
Yep. Bill Kearney, what about keto-friendly ice cream like Rebel?
Well, I don't know if you may not have heard me mention, usually the ice cream I'm talking about is called Halo, which is a little bit more keto-friendly than Rebel.
Yep. Check out Dr. Klit's keto ice cream. It's just eggs and cream. Very keto and yummy. Interesting.
Yep.
I'm a boomer. Freshly hard-boiled eggs and cold-boiled eggs were really good. Yeah, I know. I realize I'm in the minority. I'm gonna stop
Okay,
with that.
that's what you get,
You're not.
Jesus, hanging
You're
around
not gonna.
all those boomers.
You're not gonna change my mind though. But I will. I will respect your decisions, even if I don't agree with them. I will respect your wrong decisions. I will say that.
You hang around with boomers too much. That's your problem.
I have a second cousin, Blazer. Well, I don't know what's the context for that. I'm sorry. Uh, so Jan Johnson, should the organ meat eaten be grass fed only? I mean, yeah, I think there's consensus in regards to what is the cattle eating. So usually grass fed, it's gonna be better. That there's no doubt about it.
There's
Grain
an
fed,
argument over
hormones, all
you
that
are
stuff.
what you eat, and there's some clarity and some truth to that. When you look at beef, for example, most and especially inexpensive beef tends to be corn finished, and corn is like pure carbs. And you look at the meat on those cattle, and the meat has fat ribbons running through it. That's actually what happens to humans when we get diabetic. We start having fat ribbons running through our muscle. And people used to say, well, and I used to think this too, that, well, for the most part, the meat is meat. There are differences. You get more branch chain fatty acids and some challenges associated with that. But it's not, even that is not the poison that a lot of people would say.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, yeah, it's better to get grass pasture meats, but is it going to kill you to eat other types of meats? I don't think so. Yeah. It won't kill you as fast as eating cereal and pasta.
Yep. So I want to go into quick bonnet hole real quick, and I agree with everything you said, Dr. Brewer. But we are on the 1 hour mark, so I already failed.
You failed again.
Lynn Carey, congratulations on your weight loss trip. I have also lost a few pounds after starting a low carb diet, but what can we eat if we have kidney disease and heart problems and osteoporosis, which is a big deal. Like you get on one side, you should not be eating fat because of cholesterol. On the other side, you should not be eating protein because of the kidney disease. And now we're telling you you should not be eating carbs because of your heart. So what's left to eat? I understand the concerns. So one thing is, the main way that we use to calculate kidney function is with something called creatinine, which is a blood value that comes from creatine that's usually a remnant from metabolizing proteins, which proteins should not be filtered by the kidney. That's not the way it should be. But similar to supplementing with creatine, there is also an expectation that creatinine levels are gonna increase whenever you eat a lot of protein, a lot of meat, or eggs. And what we have seen on a recent video, if you haven't checked that out, I just retitled that to 7 things only people who do carnivore diet know. There's one recent study that showed that people who eat a lot of protein, a little bit more than 1.2 grams per kilogram or 1.1 gram per pound of protein every day, they usually have a better life expectancy, even if they have kidney disease. Like people with kidney disease can eat protein. What we recommend whenever somebody's concerned about that and we see a decrease on kidney function because of that creatinine levels goes up, is to check with another study called cystatin C. So cystatin C, it's a number that can measure your kidney function and doesn't get modified by how much protein you eat. So that's a good place to start, just to see how much protein you can actually eat. We're not too concerned about fat. We're more concerned about carbohydrates because diabetic kidney disease, and as you see on the channel, a lot of carbs, insulin resistance are the major drivers of heart problems. For the osteoporosis, we recommend checking vitamin D and maybe considering vitamin K2, supplementing with vitamin K2 as another option. Understanding that we don't want to eat a lot of calcium because that might wreck the kidneys as well when you do that in excess. But it's important to know your levels. Uh, but it's a lot of it involves testing, and just it's an individual decision that we cannot provide in YouTube like exactly what to do. What do you think, Dr. Brewer?
I think that's true.
Concise. My circuit
Yeah.
training classes are almost always before my first meal, which is usually lunch. Yeah, well, yeah, I feel like I'm losing context. Jan Johnson, is metformin not recommended for hypothyroidism? As far as I know, if there is hyper, like excess thyroid hormone, metformin can induce some changes. I haven't seen a problem with using metformin in somebody who has hypothyroidism. Have you?
I'm sure you'll find it somewhere on the internet. But I also am very sure that I've seen and worked with plenty of patients that had hypothyroidism and prediabetes or diabetes and were on metformin. Then the question is, was the metformin overall? Again, it gets back to that theme we've been discussing. Yes, there is some poison aspect to it, but is the overall benefit worth the risk?
Yep. RFK Jr. just said this morning on CNBC that lifestyle change should happen first, but that GLP-1s like Ozempic have a place. What do you think? Wasn't he
He called me to ask me that before he said it.
Oh, okay.
He got that from me.
Can you imagine? Harvey Abscess mentioned something interesting. Grip strength also important for longevity. Yes, it's a main way that we use to measure metabolically active muscle, but it's not like you should just be training your forearm muscles. It's not about that. It's just a measure that we use. Like you can in theory, you can cheat the test if you just only do forearm exercises. Yeah. But it's about overall muscle.
It's just very unlikely for someone to have a really good grip strength and not have good overall muscle components. Yep. Let me hit us with this one. Ozempic retired retatrutide is the clear winner. They're getting better and better, and I would say even Mounjaro is out there. We end up using a lot of Mounjaro, a lot fewer side effects than Ozempic, some of which include less muscle loss as well.
Yep.
Let's still get you around the thing that if you're on any of these medications or doing any kind of weight loss, you need to be doing the right kind of exercise that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what we say. Medications have a place. Like even metformin might have some benefits on weight loss. So
lots of lots of resistance training, and you can't just do walking down the road.
Yeah,
that's not.
Yeah. Take out DCR, just thigh and calf muscles more because they're larger muscle. That's the whole reason why to build more of those, right?
Well, actually, it's a good point. Let me add to that.
Sure.
You're also asking, do they get much more use than the arms? So I'm standing right now. Jesus is sitting. So my calves and thighs are actually working. And there's research just 2 or 3 years ago on a thing called soleus push-ups. They took people who were doing like Jesus, just sitting around, not standing, and they said, just tap your toe, bring your leg up, even while you're sitting, just bring your leg up on your toe and bring it back down. Call that a soleus push-up. And what they found was that actually helped those individuals control their blood sugar, even after a meal. So to your point, tech ABS are, yes, not only are they bigger, they're also the muscles that we use to stand and to walk. They are the muscles of the activities of daily living. So that's a big part of this.
Well, to your point, the reason I don't have a standing desk is because you're too cheap to buy it for me.
That's exactly right. That's the truth.
How does one get enough protein without consuming way more calories than by eating meat? Getting protein without the calories. So there are protein powders, protein shakes that are options, aren't there?
Say that again.
Protein powders and protein shakes.
Yeah, but with both of those, you got to be really careful. Those are, and we've warned people multiple times. Those are one of the classic ways for somebody who's trying to remain keto to lose ketosis.
Yeah, oh, that's
As
for sure.
as you mentioned earlier, protein can stimulate insulin. Protein it can be fairly quickly metabolized into sugars. Fats cannot. So especially if you're using an extremely highly processed protein, you run into more of that problem. And what more highly processed protein can you get than protein powder or protein shakes?
Yep. So, so what's the answer then?
It's
Nuts.
not easy
Oh, nuts.
especially
Nuts have
for
more
as
fat than
we
protein.
age. What?
Nuts have more protein, more fat than protein.
Yeah, I think one of the answers is people are afraid of fat in their diet, and we need to get over that fear of fat in the diet. Another thing is we need to acknowledge that it's not easy to get, especially with the recent discussions around the protein recommendations and the potential that older generations may actually need higher proteins, more than a gram per kilogram or pound. It's hard for us older people to get those kind of recommendations of protein.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Well, he's concerned about, he wants to get the amount of protein without that many calories.
Yeah, I know. And so one of the things I actually do use some protein powder. I don't use I don't use a cup full, which is what's recommended on the label. I use a tablespoonful in my coffee in the morning. I I use nuts. I had one of those cold boiled eggs this morning. It's again, there's challenges, and I still don't think I get enough protein for. Well, I know I don't get as much protein as some of the more recent recommendations for older people.
Well, now
Just
we're thinking about meat-based protein, but if there are options for vegetable protein like chickpeas, for example. So chickpeas are an option.
And people will say, "Oh, plant protein is not nearly as accessible." And again, I'm not going to argue that point. I'm going to go back to the theme we've been talking about is, okay, what are the real benefit risk ratios? So some of the protein powder that I use is a chickpea protein powder.
Yep. So I don't need chickpeas just because I'm too lazy to cook them. But any other than that, I don't see a problem. Eggs are another source. I don't like beans, but beans are another source for somebody who doesn't get glucose spikes because of them. Yeah. So of course, I will agree that biggest protein sources are coming from meat. And I don't think you can, like, if you get to 1.4, 1.5 grams per kilogram or per pound, that you're really gonna excess your calorie intake. Like I will say that if you're overeating on calories on meat, you're also overeating protein. But it's a calculation that needs to be done on an individual basis.
Well, think about it. If you're getting all of that from a very fat-laden ribeye, yeah, because you're getting a ton of fat calories along with the protein.
Yeah, or ribs. Like ribs
Yeah.
have a lot of calories on them. Like you can get a lot of protein on different types of meat that don't necessarily have that much calories as well. Yeah. Anyhow, well, I failed. 1 hour, 13 minutes. Just wanted to let you know, guys, the next two shows are revolving around these concepts that we teach our patients, just because we want to make sure that we are saying the same things saying on YouTube as we're saying to our patients. And sometimes we don't tell on YouTube the same, well, not the same, but we don't address the same topics. That's what I'm trying to say. Like we haven't talked about carbohydrate to fiber ratio, or talked about fiber enough on the channel, and we discuss that every day with our patients. So we can discuss the importance or lack thereof of fiber on the next show. And we're going to talk about a lot about micronutrients on the last show at the end of the year. And just the last comment, thank you so much for being part of the 500,000 subscribers. We just hit 500,000 subscribers last night, which we're very, very pleased and happy. We're able to help a lot of people. If you're not subscribed and want to be part of that gang, go ahead and click the subscribe button. And we'll be seeing you next week then.
Thank you much.